there's been some people come up to us lately as we've walked around public. Again, I had a couple of people this week. I was with my parents out for lunch, and I could tell someone was like looking. They're like, "Hey, want to just let you know we love the show," and it was cool, you know. So we appreciate when you come up and then give us your show ideas. We appreciate you coming and getting the emails. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot about, it's been interesting to watch on Facebook, is this downtown progress party. I saw that they had posted. I don't know if everyone had saw it, but the downtown is going to have a progress party. I'll let John elaborate a little bit more.
What am I going to elaborate on? I don't know what the hell a progress party is.
Well, that's true. But I was entertained to see people's responses saying, you know,
oh yeah,
like they were holding nothing back. They were holding nothing back. They were just like, what's going on with this thing? So, John, what do you think this progress party is?
I have no idea. You know what? It's kind of. It seems to me it's. It kind of goes along with that participation ribbon and oh hey, you know, here's a 9th place trophy.
Yeah.
It's like okay, so you have a ribbon cutting.
Right.
When you're done.
Yeah, you break ground.
In a party, you have the shovels and you do all that stuff.
And then you ribbon cut. What is this? When we were in office, well, for one, things were generally on schedule when we were in office.
Look,
so they're having a progress party, which is interesting because Old Chicago, when was this supposed to be open?
December 1st.
Right. And I don't think they're going to make it. Their progress is I saw some piping in there for plumbing.
Right. They stubbed up some plumbing.
So you mentioned the other day that there's going to be they're going to do some announcements of some new businesses.
Well, they keep saying that.
But they've
been saying that since January of 2017.
Right. But you have
we're going to have some exciting announcements. But you know what? Just real quick on this whole progress party. I think there is a distinct possibility. I think the only reason you have a progress party is so that you can actually try to convince people that you are making progress.
Right.
I mean, would we really throw a progress party if we weren't making progress?
Right.
We are. It's not a we're on time party.
Right.
Or, boy, we're getting really close party.
Yeah.
Now,
or the money's rolling in like we thought it would be party.
Well, here's the kind of pressure a progress party puts on you. Now, it's kind of like George W. Bush flying in on an aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished banner.
Right. And how many years later we're still at war?
Right. Aren't we still in Iraq?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
it's like my fear is that this progress party is going to be followed up with the project being late.
Yeah.
All these promises being broken.
Of course they are. They're already being broken.
Yeah.
We were promised a larger bowling alley, and that's something we need to be clear on. A lot of people
should have a broken promises party.
That's what we should. We should have our own broken promises party. But what goes on is a lot of people are under the misconception that there are going to be 2 bowling alleys in town.
Right.
And we need to be clear that the bowling alley on Broadway will be closing and moving downtown. Now, the reason it seems confusing is I'm pretty sure that the powers that be in the 2020 group, etc., thought they were going to get away with putting it in another name because there is John very well informed me that when they developed these star bond districts and they did all the legislation and stuff for them, there's a section in there that says you cannot poach a business from another area of town, which is a Salina...
Within 30 miles.
Within 30 miles, which is a Salina tradition. That's how we've always done it. When the airport closed down, rather than developing new business, they simply robbed all the businesses from North Salina, Lee Hardware, and a lot of those companies, and moved them all down south. And interestingly, I think most of those are now gone. School Specialty, Lee Hardware, a lot of those companies are now gone. So that's a Salina tradition. Rather than developing new business, we just move things around and say, look at all this great stuff that's being done.
Well, the problem with that is that when you close it down and open it up in a star bond district or a TIF district or anything like that, now you basically start over. So you lose a significant amount of sales tax dollars and property tax dollars.
Right.
And those go directly to the developer.
Right.
And that's how the bowling alley ends up getting like $3.6 million worth of incentives.
Right.
To build. I think something on that order.
Or Old Chicago, 350 to 500,000, depending on how it shakes out. So, and what that means is when they came in and they talked to all the downtown business people, they made promises about this is going to bring all this extra business. So we're going to have this. They did like a cornucopia, a buffet of tax incentives. They grabbed everything they could, which I don't think that was really the initial intent of all of these incentives. But they sort of piled them all on, and one of them was to add. Is it a 1% or 2%? What did they decide to do on the sales tax downtown?
Well, it's 1%. For the entire downtown.
Right.
And then the bowling alley will have an additional 1%. So if you go bowling, you're paying now 2% tax.
Above and beyond your regular tax.
Right. If you go to, and I can't remember, I think Old Chicago might
have another second.
Might not. The
well,
Old
the
Chicago
point of the matter
might be,
is they talked.
But the hotel and restaurant at the hotel.
They talked everybody into signing these things, including places like Ad Astra and the Scheme and other local businesses that are downtown. But we're pretty sure that when Taco John's moves over to Iron Street, there's probably, and the rumor has always been, that there's going to be a Starbucks or something along those lines there. Now, I doubt very seriously that the 2020 group went to Ad Astra, a local coffee shop, and said, oh, by the way, we're going to raise your sales tax, and then we're going to use that money to fund your new competition.
We're also going to raise your property tax.
And raise your property tax. Yeah. So
but
your rent's going to go up. So
maybe we need the breaking news.
Yeah, across the bottom. Yeah.
Breaking news.
Right.
Dude, that's the worst kept secret in town is that they want to put a Starbucks
right.
in there.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we probably know that's what, but there's always a chance that it might not go in there. Starbucks may wise up and say, there's no way we're going down to this disaster.
Starbucks is kind of, they're not, I wouldn't say struggling, but.
Well, they closed.
They're making a lot. They're
kind of like Old Chicago. They're closing more than they're building.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is interesting that we have one that's supposed to generate $3.8 million.
But we're incentivizing ours.
That's true. So. And things are always easier when you just give money to the competition. And we've talked about this before. They are giving $350,000 to $500,000 to a chain restaurant from out of town who now will be competing with Coop's Pizzeria, Blue Sky, and The Scheme. All local owners, local investors. Martinelli's, they're not really known for pizza, but a little bit of that. So
the alley.
The alley is another place that's going to have pizza too, and they're getting incentivized. We just said $3.5 million.
Yeah. So we're branding ourselves as the pizza capital of Kansas.
Right, but the thing is, we're incentivizing out-of-town businesses to compete with ma and pa, locally owned pizza places and other businesses really downtown. And we think that's wrong. And when we were in office, that's not the sort of thing we would have allowed. I'm not sure, what the kickbacks and everything are. They're calling right now. They're already wise to us. They know what's going on.
They're on to it.
But anyway, this is the kind of stuff that we want you to stay informed about and be aware that when they're doing this progress party, spending yet more dollars, and even if it's all donated money, who cares? I mean, it's a progress party to getting rid of mom and pop businesses in Salina, Kansas, which is what this 2020 group has been about.
Hey,
they act like they're trying to help everybody, but they're hurting the real businesses.
Speaking of which, have you seen the Facebook page from Salina 2020?
Yeah, what is that logo? What is that? Did somebody come up with that like in an old... Remember like when you first had like word processing?
Yeah.
Like on DOS or like Windows like 3 or whatever, and had like just blocky graphics. Maybe they're going retro, like the 8-bit games and 8-bit music and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're trying to do, is be like hip, but they're not. It looked like somebody
it's pretty boring.
Literally went back to an old floppy disk, shoved in there, and says, image of a building in type font. It's like,
no, you know what?
2020. You know what the 2020 is? 2020 is going to be hindsight that we told you this was a bad frickin' idea and this thing is a disaster. Sure, there'll be a few more people going downtown. Just like there's been some misconception on this whole field house thing. There's been some threads on Facebook. Everybody's like, oh, if you go by on a Tuesday night, the parking lot's full.
Yeah, and I'm sure those are all people from Nebraska and Missouri. All these out-of-state dollars that this field house is going to bring in.
This promises. John, you know the numbers on the field house. Let's talk to the people about what those numbers were supposed to be and what we're seeing on the weekends when it really is supposed to matter.
Well, they said in the first year. Now bear in mind, this was a situation where they said, "Oh, it's gonna grow over the first 5 years." Okay, so year one they were being very conservative,
right?
Okay, and gave low numbers and stuff, and they said something like 18 tournaments in the first year,
right?
And they had like 8. They said there was going to be roughly, I can't remember, something like 48 teams per tournament. There were like 20.
At the biggest one.
Yeah, and I mean, well, they had one that was 60 teams. They had a tournament that had 60 teams show up.
Really?
Yeah, the problem is that 3 years ago, when they held it at like South High and Central High,
before we had the field house,
there were 135 teams. So, oh, hey, if we build this thing,
they'll come. That's a Salina tradition. If we build it, they'll come. It never has worked out. So what you now have is you have the central location. The idea was to bring people from out of town and out of state as part of the design and part of their plan, and it has done none of that. Well, and those people were supposed to go eat at Blue Sky and the Scheme and Coops and all of those places and bring all this money downtown. But you go down there on a Tuesday night, those are all local people. They're not eating at those restaurants. You go down on the weekend, the parking lots are empty when it really matters. Well, when there are supposed to be tournaments going on and there's nothing going on.
Right, well...
Do we need to spend $13 million, of which how much was taxpayer money?
13 on the
field house, yeah.
All but $4.5 million.
Okay.
Well, actually, all but about $3 million. Because $2.5 million of the... Well, actually, $3.2 million. You got $2.5 million roughly going to the Stiefel Theater that they really never want to tell anybody about.
Right.
And then $1 million is going, because you get $9.6 million going to the field house.
Right.
From the state, earmarked for the field house. But the city's taking it out of the field house fund.
Right.
And giving the Walkers $1 million because they have to relocate their electrical utilities that they
seem to have left off the blueprints.
Yeah, that they didn't figure on.
Yeah.
And so bailing them out on that. And then $2.2 million. Initially, it was for a black box theater in the basement of the Stiefel Theater,
which is interesting considering we have a black box theater at at
the community theater.
Community theater.
Well, and the thing about that black box theater is that the Salina Community Theater raised all those funds by themselves.
Right.
They weren't taxpayer funds. Right.
Yeah.
But it's been my problem with part of the funding of this all along was that why do we need to hide this from the community?
Right.
Oh, well, we're not hiding it. Well, people don't know about it.
People don't know about it.
Kind of like the overhead structures.
The overhead structures, folks, they're still trying to shove these overhead structures down your throat.
But you know what? And hey, maybe this progress party is going to be, hey, we just want to get you guys primed and ready. They're coming. They're coming.
We're going to blow $1.5 million on them, even though 88% of you surveyed didn't want them. So that's the whole thing. Is this downtown thing is a boondoggle. I know we're giving you little bits of pieces here and there, and hopefully you're able to kind of put it together from what we're saying. And we'll try and get a little more deep. We don't want to get too much down into the weeds about some of the financing. I do intend at some point to ask the City Commission for a list of who all is receiving subsidies. And I don't want, corporation
you're never going to get that.
I don't want Lighthouse Properties, who we know are the Walkers. I want the names of the principals.
We're going to have to do that.
We're going to have to do
They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. But we're going to ask them. We're going to give them the opportunity.
They've been asked.
We're going to give them the opportunity. We also want to know who are the members of this 2020 group who are receiving all of these tax monies, even though they claim they own none of the property. I want to know how many of the members actually own property downtown. And I think as a taxpayer, and I think you as a taxpayer, need to know. And I think if they're going to use your tax dollars, they need to tell us. And that's transparency. And that's what we've had an issue with. And that's what John just got a newspaper story done on, the Kansas Open Records Act, when they tried to hide more information. And we'll do another show on that coming up next.